He truly can be a generational game-changing type of receiver. And I know the word generational is overused, but that's how highly I regard him. Today, I'm bringing you my updated top 20 wide receiver rankings for the 2025 NFL draft class. Senior Bowl is done, Combine's upcoming, and this is where I stand today. Let's start with the first three players in tier 1. I'm going to reveal the entire tier at once here, all right? Because there's just been so much debate this offseason, and I just want to ask people to have an open mind. So, Travis Hunter, Luther Burden, Tet McMillan. Lots to talk about here. All these guys are in tier 1. I have them all ranked tied around wide receiver 1, 1A, 1B, 1C. I don't care, right? When draft capital is assigned, when team landing spots are assigned, I think we can really differentiate these guys in order of 1, 2, and 3. Now, let's start with Travis Hunter. I am bringing you guys this video from the perspective of purely evaluating and scouting these guys as wide receivers. I'm well aware that Travis Hunter could play just a little bit of wide receiver in the NFL. I'm well aware that maybe he does go out there and he gives you 6 to 8 targets per game, but I'm purely evaluating Travis Hunter just as a wide receiver for this video. And as of right now, he would be right up there with these other two guys as the wide receiver 1. I want you guys to think about something for a second, okay? Travis Hunter this year, he averaged over 118 offensive snaps per game. Now, obviously, half of that was cornerback, half of that was wide receiver, right? Now, the other two guys in this list, Tet McMillan and Luther Burden, weren't even above 65, right? Tet McMillan at 60.8 snaps per game, Luther Burden at about 45 snaps per game. I mean, if you go and look at the actual usage of all three of these guys, look at the amount of snaps Travis Hunter had. You see him at free safety, cornerback, slot cornerback, box safety. You see him out wide in the slot, out of the backfield. Over 1,300 snaps. And that was only through week 13, by the way, that I collected this data. So I want you guys to just stop and ask yourself for a second. What if we took away, he had 516 snaps at corner, 75 snaps at slot. I'm well aware he's probably going to play cornerback in the NFL, but what if we allowed Travis Hunter to spend all of his time and effort into developing into a wide receiver? Because quite frankly, he is like, if he was dedicated to being a wide receiver, he'd be my wide receiver 1 in this class, point blank period. It wouldn't be close. I have never seen ball skills like this in my entire life. I've only started scouting for the past 6 or 7 years, but in that time span, including drafts with Jamar Chase and Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison last year, I have never seen ball skills like this, all right? There's not a single target where Travis Hunter is out of the play. From the ball tracking to the concentration, the high pointing, the strong hands, all of that through contact, sacrificing his body, the boundary awareness to keep the feet in. Since I began scouting, I've never seen ball skills like this. He had a reception percentage of 80%, which was 6th best in the nation. He was a top 6 PFF graded wide receiver. He caught 68.8% of his contested catches, 11 out of 16. He's got a detailed, nuanced release package. He's elusive after the catch. I mean, you can't get much more elusive than Travis Hunter. If we're talking about pro comparisons, I believe a ceiling comp for Travis Hunter is CD Lamb. That is about the type of player you could be getting if he committed his time and efforts to wide receiver. Calvin Ridley is another great comp. A floor comp, you could say Devonta Smith. I don't think it's crazy to say that's a floor comp, again, if Travis Hunter committed to playing the wide receiver position. I mean, if you compare some of these guys and, you know, some of their best seasons in college football, by the way, these comparison charts do not include the postseason, just so you guys know. So the playoffs and, you know, the championship games and all that. But you can see Travis Hunter, very favorable season just statistically to CD Lamb, right? Very favorable season to Devonta Smith. But of course, Devonta Smith had a much better season because of the postseason he had. To the names like Jerry Jeudy, who was a first-round pick, purely as a wide receiver. I really think people underestimate how good Travis Hunter can be as a wide receiver. I think he can be, if he committed his entire time to the position, a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. He truly can be a generational game-changing type of receiver. And I know the word generational is overused, but that's how highly I regard him. Let's talk about Luther Burden. In the 2023 offseason, Luther Burden and Tet McMillan were right on each other's tails as the wide receiver 1 for the 2025 class. Both had an incredible season in 2023, as you'll see here on your screen. But what happened to Luther Burden, right? His production went way, way down in 2025. And I think you can really chalk most of that up to Brady Cook. Brady Cook took a huge step back. He was way less accurate, way less efficient. The offense as a whole was far worse this year, and that took a big loss for Luther Burden. I want to remind people that Luther Burden could have very easily transferred to any school in the nation, got a huge bag with NIL, and he could have put up huge numbers. But he showed his loyalty to the school, to Missouri, to his home state, and decided he wanted to stick it out despite it being a terrible situation for him. But if you watch the film is riddled with just frustrating plays where you're shaking your head. You're like, how are you not getting Burden the ball here? It's just mistake after mistake from the offense. But Luther Burden shined every opportunity that he could. That one-on-one make your man miss ability in the open field, the NBA equivalent of Kyrie Irving's handles. He's a yak monster after the catch. He turns from a runner to a receiver in a flash. The Deebo Samuel type of comps in the open field, special yak threat, dynamic, explosive. I don't know why people are questioning his long run speed, because I definitely think it is there. The one thing I keep hearing people downplay Luther Burden's profile is his route running. And respectfully, I just don't agree with you. I think he is a good route runner. There is definitely manipulation shown on film. There's great suddenness. There's great twitch. He's got the head fakes. The body movement is there. The quick, sharp cuts. It is there if you're actually watching his film rather than just being a box score watcher. There's a bit of JSN off the line of scrimmage with his release package. He shows incredible concentration and ball tracking skills. I mean, sometimes he can literally freeze time, let the ball catch up to him, and then grab the ball out of the air. It is very, very impressive. He wins jump balls. He's extremely versatile. And the biggest reason people are down on him is because they think he's a slot exclusive wide receiver. Big deal. Most of your favorite players in the NFL at the wide receiver position are slot exclusive. Think about it for a second. Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? Just one to name. And because of his production, which again, I think if you watch the film, the production can be traced back to terrible quarterback play. I love Luther Burden. I can't help but see Jason and Deebo Samuel. You know, I can't help but see if they had a baby, that is Deebo Samuel. I can't help but see Rashee Rice. And I think a floor comp is at worst Christian Kirk level player. I think he has a chance to be an offensive juggernaut for an NFL team. Let's talk about Ted McMillan. Ted McMillan, at the end of the day, could very well be the standalone wide receiver one for me in my rankings. Let's keep that in mind, okay? Ted McMillan is an incredible player, an incredible prospect. I am not lower on Ted McMillan than everyone else. I'm just higher on Travis Hunter and Luther Burden as prospects than everyone else. But Ted McMillan, the size, speed, physicality, one-on-one ball winner, strong hands. He had a contested catch rate of 62%, caught 18 out of 29 contested catches. One hell of a prospect. The size-speed combo, the way he moves at 6'5", 212 pounds is rare. It is not common. The way that he can move in the open field after the catch as well. He gives you a lot after the catch, a little Drake London, if you will. He wins with size, speed, and leverage. Definitely not like the most crispy route runner. He's not going to give you these quick cuts, but he doesn't need to win that way. He wins with his size and his speed and his leverage. Refuses to be bullied on the routes. Very good in his zone coverage. Quarterback's best friend. You can throw it up anywhere. And, that catch radius is going to save you so much. He shows great effort as a blocker, but he's not a very versatile player. I think he lacks like special suddenness. Megatrons don't grow on trees. This isn't anywhere near as bad as like what I thought about Johnny Wilson, but he doesn't have like that next level special suddenness to his game. I think that could have separated him as the clear-cut wide receiver one in this class. Again, I think he's as good as everyone else thinks he is. It's just, I don't think there's that big of a gap as a prospect between these other names. The ceiling comp for him is Drake London, okay? Mike Evans a little bit. Evans at the catch point, London after the catch. The middle ground comp is more like a Mike Williams. And if you actually compare these guys coming out of college, you can see Ted McMillan compares very well with Drake London, who got injured in his 2021 season at USC. But if you go back and you look at Mike Williams out of Clemson, Mike Williams, look at that yak. All right, that is actually yak, not yak per reception, but they're not that far off in yak. Average depth per target, the amount of targets they got, the amount of receiving yards and receptions they got, all actually quite similar to Ted McMillan. I do think that Ted McMillan is a better overall athlete than Mike Williams was coming out of Clemson. All right, Let's move on to tier number 2, where we have Emeka Egbuka. I am such a big fan of Emeka Egbuka. He is the safest wide receiver prospect in this entire class. Egbuka is a chain mover, ankle breaker, slot specialist, incredible route runner, zone menace, has that tempo in his routes where he can deceive you at any point. Decisive planting, plant, go, you're lost, you're in a different area code, I'm butt-ass naked open. He has that in his game. He's got the versatility. He's coached by Brian Hartline out of Ohio State, so it's a solid bet. He's not a field stretcher by any stretch of the imagination. He's just not. I don't think he's as explosive after the catch as JSN was either. So that's why he's not in that top tier for me. But I think he's a very safe player. I think the comp for me would be Robert Woods. The comp for me would be a younger Juju Smith-Schuster, a Jarvis Landry. That's the type of player I see with Emeka Egbuka. Very, very safe player. And in fact, if you actually compare his 2024 season to Olave in 2021 or Wilson in 2021 out of Ohio State, it's not that different when you look at what these guys were able to offer Ohio State. Friendly reminder, Emeka Egbuka broke the all-time receiving yardage record for Ohio State, so he is not some secondary prospect. He should be a first-round pick. He's a very good player with a very safe floor. If you want a customized game plan for your offseason, then consider becoming a yearly Mother Flocker member with the promo code LAND. You will get our team playbook, which is a customized guide for your Dynasty team, as well as our rookie report, where you can dive into every wide receiver in this class, read up a profile on them, and hear my opinion, as well as my rankings. Then check out the pinned comment to become a Mother Flocker member with the promo code LAND. All right, moving on to tier number 3. We've got 2 players in this tier, starting off with Jalen Royals. I will be higher on Jalen Royals, as I was back in November, than probably anybody else in the industry, as I'm realizing that now, and I'm okay with that. We've got a dynamic, versatile, big body, route running yak threat. There are so many reasons to be in love with Jalen Royals. I'm convinced that if Jalen Royals was playing for Ohio State, every single person in the industry would have him as an unquestioned first-round pick in the NFL draft. 10 catches of 50 plus yards in the last 2 seasons. That is number 1 in the FBS, according to Dane Brugler of The Athletic. But we've got a ridiculous yak threat on our hands with Jalen Royals. Utah State knew that, right? They're constantly giving him opportunities after the catch. He had a ton of designed screens or quick passes to operate after the catch. He had a very low ADOT and a very high yak per reception. He's got incredible body control, legitimate versatility. You can move him inside, you can move him outside. He has that body to play either position at 5'11", 210 pounds. If you're purely just looking at the box score, the production probably isn't going to blow you away, but you will fail to realize that he only played 7 games. He was actually on track for over 100 receptions, over 1,500 receiving yards. I mean, he was on track for a monster year before he went down with that injury to his foot. He's got quick, crispy footwork off the line of scrimmage, great manipulation in his routes, ton of physicality at the catch point, and he has a contested catch rate over the last 2 seasons of almost 66%, catching 25 out of 38 contested catches. Now, of course, people are going to question the competition in the Mountain West, and I can understand that, but I think we've got a Rashee Rice, George Pickens mix of a player here. He can win at the catch point, but he's also very good after the catch. He has the developmental ability to be a top 15 player at his position in the NFL. And in fact, if you compare him to Rashee Rice in 2022, out of college, not that far off. But again, that was Jalen Royals' 2023 season. If you look at his 2024 season, he was on track to put up even better numbers than Rashee Rice did in 2022. All right, we've also got Matthew Golden in this tier, which, depending on draft capital, Golden's probably going to jump over Jalen Royals in my rankings. But right now, as prospects, I would have them graded out with the same grade as what it ended up being. But Matthew Golden's an incredible player. All right, he is great at manipulating space, right? Ridiculously high IQ as a route runner. He might not have, elite twitch or elite throttle down, but he beats you with his mind, right? If you're playing off of him, he's going to know exactly how to beat you with the body fakes, the head fakes, the manipulation. He can create separation with ease. And he not only does it with his physical body, but with his mind, right? He has a special ability to identify his own coverage, sit in that pocket for his quarterback. His ball skills are tier 1, A1 sauce level ball skills. I mean, there are plenty of opportunities where Quinn Ewers made him make a difficult catch, and he always came down with the ball. The one-handers, the concentration catches, the one-on-one jump balls. He has tier 1 ball skills. He's a pure hands catcher, doesn't rely on the body. He has the inside-outside versatility. Played 76% out wide for Texas this year, almost 24% in the slot. He can beat you downfield. He can stretch the field. You can give him, the intermediate stuff. He's a full-on, very reliable, I would say very high floor type of prospect. Now, he doesn't have, like I said, he can't throttle down on a dime and cut back to the ball, but, doesn't have the game-changing yak appeal some of these other guys in the class do. I do also question his run blocking ability, but overall, I think he's a very good player. I can't help but compare him to a younger Brandon Cooks, who all Brandon Cooks did coming out of college was put up 1,000-yard season after 1,000-yard season. That's a very good player. I see some T.Y. Hilton. I see some Robert Woods to his game. I see some Emmanuel Sanders. I think he's going to be a very good wide receiver too for an NFL team for years and years to come. All right, let's get into tier 4. We've got Jack Besh leading the way. I'm such a big fan of Jack Besh. He's a big physical player with route running chops and some of the best hands in the entire class. I think he's a potential hidden gem just waiting to be found. This man has magnetic hands. What do I mean by that? When the ball is coming in the air, he's not waiting for his body, like relying on it. He is snagging that thing out of the air and pulling it back into his body like magnets coming together. Best drop rate of anybody in the class at 1.6%. Extremely versatile. In 2023, he was a big slot. 75% of his snaps in the slot. And in 2024, he played the majority of his snaps out wide, 71%. Difficult to bring down in the open field. He has this big body, but he's still very shifty and elusive. He's going to bowl you over, or he can make you miss with the speed. He actually reminds me a little bit of Puka Nacua after the catch. I'm not saying he's going to be as good as Puka Nacua, but his play style reminds me of that. He's a zone menace. He's deceptively smooth on those routes. Look, he's got his own warts. His senior season was his breakout. I'm not sure if he'll test all that well. He's got better quickness and long run speed. He's not going to stretch the field vertically all that much. But again, I can't help but see some Puka Nacua, Robert Woods to his game as a ceiling comp. The floor comp is more of like a Tim Patrick, a versatile Gabe Davis, but I think Jack Besh could be a great player in the NFL. All right, let's talk about Trey Harris in this tier, my wide receiver 8. Trey Harris, by far, of any wide receiver in the class, has the widest range of outcomes. He's a size, speed, super fluid athlete. Was number 1 in yards per route run, was the 4th graded PFF receiver this year. Size, speed athlete. He can beat you down the field. He's quick off the line of scrimmage, for his size at 6'3", 210 pounds. He made some ridiculous highlight grabs, but there still is a lot of development to be made for a name like Trey Harris. There's some concentration drops on film. His route tree is very limited. About 80 to 90% of his routes were just like this simple comeback, or, a screen or an option. There wasn't a lot of nuance or detail to his route tree or to his route running. His routes were also quite rounded off. There wasn't very shifty or, decisiveness in his planting. There's a ton of free releases in his game. Despite his jack numbers, I don't think it's a calling card for him after the catch. He's not elusive. He's just big and he's fast. He lacks special suddenness. He's not very elusive or versatile, and he's a 5th-year senior, 23-year-old at the NFL draft. So you'd hope a guy who's 23 years old is beating all these people in college football. Like I said, the biggest range of outcome in the class. He has a ceiling to be a Nico Collins, but he has that middle ground to be like a George Pickens, Christian Watson type of player, and the floor to be a Jonathan Mingo, Quentin Johnston. There's truly a huge wide range of outcomes for this player. Moving on, let's talk about Jalen Knoll. Here's what I'll say about Jalen Knoll. If you loved Josh Downs, you'll love Jalen Knoll. Jalen Knoll is one of my favorite sleepers in the entire class. He balled out at the Senior Bowl, so maybe sleeper isn't the right tag to put on him anymore. But he has the bag as a route runner, the release package, the quick stop-start movements, the clean cuts, the body fakes, the manipulations. He gains separation not only with ease, but with consistent ease. And if you're a sucker for a clean, crisp route runner, you will fall in love with Jalen Knoll. I can't help but see Josh Downs and Darnell Mooney when I watch his game. And if you compare these guys coming out of the college, Jalen Knoll and Josh Downs actually have very favorable, production profiles in the regular season. You can see Jalen Noel versus Josh Downs in 2022. Actually, very, very similar profiles across the board. Darnell Mooney didn't have a great season in 2018 before he came out, but I really like those comparisons. I think he can be a dominant slot receiver with the versatility to play outside. After that, let's talk about my 10A and 10B players, Tez Johnson and Jaden Higgins. I love Tez Johnson. I don't care, if you're out on Tez Johnson because of his size. I stopped caring about size a while ago for NFL prospects at the wide receiver position. The game is changing, and Tez Johnson showed at the Senior Bowl he can beat press coverage and he can produce against any cornerback, in the NFL. Not any cornerback, but the slot cornerbacks, which he'll be facing. He had a higher yards per route run in 2024 than any wide receiver not named Malik Nabers in that class. He has true burner speed, the MVS Rashid Shaheed type of burner speed. He's a nightmare to guard one-on-one. I can't help but see some Tank Dell in his route running ability. He's extremely elusive, rock solid hands, had the 4th highest reception percentage in the nation, made some wow catches. Now look, I hear you guys. He's not very versatile. He's going to be a slot exclusive guy. He definitely struggles through contact as a contested catch option, and you just have to use him the right way. Imagine what the Giants, how they use Wan'Dale Robinson, but imagine a guy who's actually effective after the catch. That's what Tez Johnson can be in the NFL. My comps, Walmart Tank Dell with Wan'Dale Robinson role. The floor is a Tutu Atwell, but I think, at the end of the day, if someone shows you who they are, you believe them. And Tez Johnson shows on film to be an absolute baller. Right after that, we have Jaden Higgins, who's a very good player in his own right. He is this big physical chain moving possession type of wide receiver. He plays more like a tight end than a wide receiver in my opinion, but just an all around very good football player. Reliable hands, pretty good route runner for his size, good footwork off the line of scrimmage. I actually think he could be a better big slot than an Alpha X in the NFL, but my comps for him, Mike Williams is my ceiling comp. I don't think that's crazy. I think coming out of college, Mike Williams was a very good player out of Clemson. His floor comp is more like Michael Wilson, Andre Yeshivas. I do think Jaden Higgins is a very good all-around player. I'm just not so certain that he's the next superstar like everybody wants to claim he is. All right, let's get into tier 5. We'll go through this tier a little bit quicker. We've got Xavier Restrepo, who I can't help but see the next Khalil Shakir. If you compare Xavier Restrepo and Khalil Shakir's seasons coming out of college, they actually compare very, very well, but Restrepo was just a much more reliable catcher of the football. Like, he didn't have as many drops. He had a much higher reception percentage. But I can't help but see Khalil Shakir, just this guy who out of the slot might not be the most athletic player, but can be a reliable, scrappy, physical, catch everything out of the slot type of guy. I see that with Xavier Restrepo. Right after that, we have Savion Williams, who has got to be the most unique prospect in the entire class. He is 6'5", 225 pounds. He was clocked in at 22.5 miles per hour. This year, he squatted 600 pounds. He bench pressed 355 pounds. He power clinged 350. He's a ridiculous athlete. They used him at wide receiver and at running back this year. He has 6 touchdowns as a receiver, 6 touchdowns as a running back. You can't help but see Cordero Patterson. The issue with him is, he was a late declare. He did break out late. He's got inconsistent ball skills, but he's a very fun what if. After that, we have Ja'Cory Brooks, who I can't help but see like a Walmart Jameson Williams. He's going to be able to stretch the field, but he doesn't have the best ball skills, right? After that, we have Isaiah Bond, who I think is one of the top 5 talents at the position at wide receiver, but unfortunately has never been able to produce his entire career. He only has one game his entire career over 100 receiving yards. And there's the ball skills, there's a lot to be desired, but as a route runner, he's one of the best in the class. As a yak threat, he's one of the best in the class. He can stretch the field. I see a lot of Brandon Cooks, Jaden Reed, but with the production questions, it's hard to really value him too highly. Moving on to tier 6. Got a bunch of names here like Kyle Williams, Alec Ao Minor, Ricky White, Torrey Horton, Ty Felton. I'd like to highlight 2 names here. Firstly, Kyle Williams, one of my favorite sleepers in this class, 5'10", 182 pounds out of Washington State. This is a tier 1 yak threat. He was 8th in yak per reception this year. Tons of versatility, game-changing juice. Play him inside, play him outside. Quick release package. Great concentration on deep balls. Had a contested catch rate of 62.5%, but he is a late breakout. Very simplified route tree. A lot of manufactured touches. I think he could be a very good developmental wide receiver 2/3 in the NFL. A lot of Jaden Reed, Demarcus Robinson to his game. Let's talk about Alec Ayomanor. I am lower on Alec Ayomanor than the average person. I personally believe he should have come back to college. There's a lot of development still needed to be done in his game. I get where everyone's coming from. If you watch the game versus Travis Hunter in 2023, you're going to see a dominant performance where he had almost 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in a half. But outside of that one game, if you look at the majority of his other games and the rest of his career, I'm just not sure I understand the hype from everybody else, right? I mean, he moves well for his size. He wins with physicality. He overcame bad quarterback play at Stanford. But, you know, is physicality his only calling card? I just don't understand it. He doesn't create much separation. Every target that you see on film is accompanied by a defender because he's not able to create separation on any of his routes. His hands can be inconsistent, and everybody is saying that he's this big body, reliable contested catcher, but he doesn't have a good contested catch rate. His hands aren't reliable. They're very inconsistent. He's not always that good at high pointing the ball. He has some mental drops on film, and he offers very little to, if anything, after the catch as a receiver. His analytics are poor across the board. I just don't think he should have came out this year. His ceiling comp for me is Keon Coleman, Michael Pittman. His floor comp for me is Devontae Parker, Gabe Davis. I think he has the developmental upside that a lot of people love, but I think there are a lot of issues on film that need to be addressed in his game. And I have a lot more questions than the average person. All right, let's move on to tier number 7. Pat Bryant, Nick Nash, and LeJounte Wester. Nick Nash is everybody's favorite sleeper, so I'll talk about him in this tier. 6'3", 195 pounds. I'll be honest, the production isn't really that impressive when you take into account that he had 171 targets this year. So 171 targets is more than 30 more targets than the next wide receiver in college football. In fact, Nick had the second highest target total in a single season in the last 8 years. All right. So yes, the production is impressive, but if you get 171 targets, you damn well better be able to put up some numbers, right? So it's not that impressive to me personally. He had a interesting career. He's a 6-year senior, played a little quarterback, then redshirted and played wide receiver. I think he's got solid hands. He's got a big body. He's got good speed for his size. He can jump out of the gym, but the red flags are he's got training wheels as a route runner. He's a 6-year senior. He's not dynamic or explosive after the catch. He moves more like a tight end than he does a wide receiver. And again, the production is impressive, but of course it is because he had 171 targets. Guys, if you gave Travis Hunter this year 171 targets, he would have been on pace to have 135 receptions, 1,800 yards, and 21 touchdowns. It's not that impressive. All right. And the last player we'll talk about here is Caden Prather. Not to be a negative Nancy, I just don't see any reason for us to be excited about Caden Prather. His production plateaued in college. He had 500 yards as a sophomore and never really broke out after that. He has very clunky movements, way too many double dribble catches where he catches it and then it falls out of his hands and grabs it again. He uses his body too much, no deception on his route running, doesn't offer you anything after the catch. I just think Caden Prather is A.T. Perry at best. I just don't see much, if anything, to get excited about. Those are my rankings. I know not everybody's going to agree with everything, and that's okay, but let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Drop a like on the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. All love. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, L-A-N-D, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.